For millennia, the greatest military minds in the world made the exact same catastrophic miscalculation. They looked at the Persian Empire and saw an enemy that could be broken. Greek city-states hurled their finest warriors at it. The Babylonians tried to contain it. Egyptian pharaohs trembled behind their borders, hoping it would stop. Scythian nomads raided its edges from the north, and yet, one by one, they all failed. Not because Persia was simply strong. Many empires were strong. Persia was something far more dangerous. It was wise. It did not just conquer lands, it conquered minds. It did not just take cities, it offered them something no conqueror before had ever offered: dignity. How did a small, mountain-dwelling tribe from the harsh plateaus of southwestern Iran manage to build the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen? How did they rule 50 million people, half the population of the entire earth, without burning their temples or enslaving their populations? And how did the Persian model of power become so revolutionary that it quietly shaped the way every major civilization after it chose to govern? This is the story of the empire that invented tolerance as a political weapon, turned administration into an art form, and came closer than any force in history to uniting the entire ancient world under one roof. To understand Persia, you need to understand where it came from. And that means going back long before Cyrus, long before the great kings, long before the armies that shook the earth. Somewhere between the 20th and 15th centuries before Christ, nomadic Indo-European tribes descended from the steppes of Central Asia onto the Iranian plateau. They were pastoralists, warriors, people hardened by harsh winds and open skies. They called themselves Aryans, the noble ones, and the land they settled they called Arianum Vaetia, land of the Aryans. Over centuries, these tribes fragmented into distinct peoples. The most powerful of these would become the Medes in the northwest and the Persians in the southwest, in a region called Pars or Parsa. For a long time, the Persians were the junior partner. It was the Medes who rose to dominance first, forging a powerful kingdom that in 612 before Christ helped destroy the terrifying Assyrian Empire, the most feared military machine the ancient Near East had ever produced. The Medes became the regional superpower. The Persians watched, learned, and waited. Their moment came through one extraordinary man. Cyrus II was born around 600 before Christ, the son of a Persian king and a Median princess. He was, in every sense, the product of two worlds, and in 550 before Christ, he used that dual inheritance to do something no one expected. He rebelled against his Median overlord. His own grandfather Astyages defeated him in battle, and rather than executing him, as every conqueror before him would have done, he spared his life and treated him with respect. It was the first glimpse of something new, a different kind of power. Within a decade, Cyrus had absorbed the Median kingdom entirely. Then he turned west. The kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey was ruled by Croesus, a man so legendary for his wealth that we still say rich as Croesus today. Croesus consulted the oracle at Delphi before marching against Cyrus. The oracle told him that if he crossed the river Halys to attack, a great empire would fall. Croesus assumed it meant Persia. He crossed the river. The great empire that fell was his own. After Lydia came the Greek city-states of Asia Minor, absorbed not by fire and massacre, but by negotiation and administration. Then Cyrus turned east, consolidating vast territories across Central Asia. And then he turned to the greatest prize of the ancient world, Babylon. In 539 before Christ, Cyrus marched his armies toward the city that had dominated the ancient Near East for centuries. Babylon was not just a city, it was a symbol. Massive walls, the hanging gardens, the most sophisticated urban civilization on earth. Its king, Nabonidus, had deeply alienated his own people by neglecting the god Marduk and spending years in the desert. When Cyrus arrived, something almost impossible happened. The city opened its gates, the priests of Marduk welcomed him, the population did not resist. Cyrus entered Babylon not as a destroyer, but as a liberator. What he did next stunned the ancient world. He issued what historians now call the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay barrel inscribed with a declaration unlike anything a conqueror had ever written before. He announced that he would not force the peoples of Babylon to abandon their gods. He would return the statues of foreign deities that Nabonidus had removed. He would allow deported peoples to return to their homelands. He freed the Jews who had been held in Babylonian captivity for decades, allowing them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. The Bible records Cyrus as the only non-Jewish figure to be called a Messiah, an anointed one by the Hebrew prophets. This was not weakness. This was political genius of the highest order. Every city Cyrus entered had heard what he did in the last one. Every people he conquered knew they would be allowed to keep their language, their gods, their customs. Resistance evaporated before his armies even arrived. The empire did not need to burn anything down because it gave people a reason to want to belong. When Cyrus died around 530 before Christ, his son Cambyses took the throne and immediately set his sights on the one great civilization that remained outside Persian control: Egypt. In 525 before Christ, Cambyses invaded and conquered Egypt, adding its ancient pharaonic civilization to the Persian world. The empire now stretched from the Aegean Sea to the Indus Valley, from the Black Sea to the cataracts of the Nile. But Cambyses was erratic, volatile, haunted by something his father never was: insecurity. Ancient sources describe him descending into cruelty and paranoia. He reportedly murdered his own brother Smerdis to eliminate a rival. He died under mysterious circumstances in 522 before Christ while returning to Persia to deal with a rebellion. What followed was a crisis that nearly tore the empire apart. A man claiming to be the dead Smerdis seized the throne. Provinces began to revolt. The entire structure Cyrus had built trembled. And then a young Persian nobleman from a collateral branch of the royal family moved with lethal precision. His name was Darius. Darius I took power in 522 before Christ and immediately understood that the empire's greatest threat was not its external enemies. It was its own size, an empire stretching across 3 continents. Governing dozens of languages, religions, and cultures could not be held together by force alone. It needed architecture, not just stone architecture, administrative architecture. Darius divided the empire into 20 provinces called satrapies, each governed by a satrap, a regional governor with significant local autonomy but bound to the central treasury and military structure. He introduced a standardized taxation system, the first of its kind in history, where each satrapy paid a fixed tribute based on its agricultural and economic output. He minted a gold coin, the darik, that became the international currency of the ancient world. He built the Royal Road, a 2,700-kilometer highway stretching from Sardis on the Aegean coast to Susa in the Persian heartland, along which royal messengers could travel the entire length in just 7 days. Herodotus marveled that nothing in the world was faster than these couriers, an ancient postal service that inspired the famous phrase, "Neither snow nor rain nor heat shall stay these couriers." Darius also built Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the empire, high on a stone terrace in the mountains of Fars. Its grand staircases were carved with reliefs showing delegations from every corner of the empire. Ethiopians, Indians, Greeks, Egyptians, Lydians, Arabians, all bringing gifts to the Persian king, not as conquered slaves, as participants, as members of a world order. The imagery was deliberate and powerful. This is what it looks like when the whole world is one. But history does not permit perfection, and the wound that would haunt Persia for generations came from the West, from a collection of small, fractious city-states that refused to accept Persian logic. Greece. In 499 before Christ, the Greek cities of Ionia in Asia Minor, already under Persian rule, revolted. Athens sent ships to support them. The Ionians burned the Persian regional capital of Sardis. Darius suppressed the revolt, but the involvement of Athens lit something in him that could not be extinguished. A power that funds rebellion within your empire cannot be left unpunished. In 490 before Christ, Darius sent an expedition to Greece. At the plain of Marathon, a Persian force met an Athenian army that had no business winning. And yet, through tactical brilliance and terrain advantage, the Athenians drove the Persians back to their ships. A messenger ran the 40 kilometers back to Athens to announce the victory. The legend of Marathon was born. Darius died before he could answer the insult. His son Xerxes would carry that responsibility. In 480 before Christ, Xerxes assembled the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen. Ancient sources describe numbers in the millions, obviously exaggerated, but the army was genuinely massive. He bridged the Hellespont with boats and marched his forces into Europe. At the pass of Thermopylae, 300 Spartans under Leonidas held his army for 3 days. Not enough to stop it, but enough to become immortal. Athens was taken and burned. It seemed Greece would fall. Then came Salamis. The Persian fleet, maneuvering in the narrow straits near Athens, was outmaneuvered by the smaller Greek navy. Ship after ship went down. Xerxes watched from a golden throne on the shore. His naval power was broken. Without control of the sea, the land campaign became impossible to sustain. Xerxes withdrew. Here is what Western history never fully admits. For the Persian Empire, Greece was a peripheral concern, a border annoyance. Losing the Greek campaign did not shake the empire's foundations. The treasuries of Persepolis remained full. The satrapies continued functioning. The royal road kept humming. What Persia could not take by force, it simply bought, funding Sparta against Athens and Athens against Sparta for decades afterward, turning Greek power against itself without spending a single Persian soldier. In 387 before Christ, the exhausted Greeks signed the King's Peace, a treaty dictated entirely on Persian terms. Persia won the Greek wars, just not the way anyone remembers it. For another 50 years, the Achaemenid Empire remained the dominant force in the known world. But inside its magnificent walls, something was rotting. The problem was succession. Every time a great king died, the court dissolved into conspiracies, poisonings, and fratricidal wars. Weak kings followed strong ones. Satraps grew increasingly autonomous. The magnificent administrative machine Darius had built began to rust. By the time a young Macedonian king began his eastward march in 334 before Christ, the empire was a giant with tired legs. Alexander crossed into Asia with around 40,000 soldiers, a fraction of what Persia could theoretically mobilize. But Persian armies were no longer what they had been under Cyrus and Darius. At the Granicus River, at Issus, at Gaugamela, the Persian forces broke before Macedonian phalanxes and cavalry charges. The last Achaemenid king, Darius III, fled his own battlefield twice, eventually murdered by his own officers in the desert of eastern Iran. In 330 before Christ, Alexander entered Persepolis, the heart of the empire, the city where the entire world once came to offer tribute. He burned it. Ancient sources debate whether it was deliberate policy or a drunken decision at a party. Either way, the flames that consumed Persepolis announced to the world that the Achaemenid dynasty was finished. An empire that had endured for 220 years, that had ruled half the human race, was gone in less than a decade. And yet, Persia did not disappear. It never does. Alexander, the man who burned Persepolis, began wearing Persian robes within months of his victory. He adopted Persian court ceremonies, the ritual prostration before the king that his own Macedonian generals found humiliating and barbaric. He married Roxana, a Bactrian princess from the Persian world. He encouraged his officers to take Persian wives. He incorporated Persian soldiers into his army. He declared himself the successor to the Achaemenids, the legitimate heir to Cyrus and Darius. The conqueror had been conquered by the culture he destroyed. When Alexander died in 323 before Christ, his empire fractured. The eastern portions, including Persia, fell to his general Seleucus, who founded the Seleucid Empire. Greek became the language of administration. But beneath the Greek surface, Persian culture survived intact, flowing through trade routes, religious practices, artistic traditions, and the sheer weight of civilizational memory. Within a century, a new Iranian dynasty was rising in the east. The Parthians, an Iranian people from the steppe borderlands, pushed the Seleucids out, and by 247 before Christ had established their own kingdom. By 141 before Christ, their king Mithridates I had taken Mesopotamia, reconstituted the old Persian heartlands, and declared himself King of Kings, the ancient Persian royal title, in a direct and conscious claim to Achaemenid legitimacy. Persia had returned, wearing different clothes, speaking a slightly different language, but unmistakably itself. What the Persians built between 550 and 330 before Christ was not simply an empire. It was a template. Every major empire that came after it, Hellenistic, Roman, Islamic, Mongol, borrowed from the Persian model of governance, whether they knew it or not. The concept of a centralized state with regional autonomy, a royal road network, standardized currency, a professional civil service, religious tolerance as a tool of political stability. These were Persian inventions. The Romans called their provincial governors by a different name, but governed by the same logic Darius had worked out 4 centuries earlier. The Persian idea that you could hold a vast, multi-ethnic empire together not through constant terror, but through dignity, through allowing people to keep their gods and their languages while binding them to a shared administrative and economic structure, that idea never fully died. It became the invisible architecture beneath every civilization that tried to be larger than a single tribe. There is a reason that even today, long after the empire has been dust for 2.5 millennia, the word Persia carries weight. It does not sound like conquest. It sounds like something more seductive than that. It sounds like the memory of a world that briefly made sense, a world where a Babylonian priest, a Jewish merchant, a Greek craftsman, an Egyptian farmer, and an Indian trader all operated within the same system, recognized the same roads, spent the same coins, and lived under the same legal protection. Cyrus the Great built something that no military force in history had built before him. Not just an empire, a civilization that knew how to include. And perhaps that is the most radical thing any ruler has ever done. Not the conquest, not the burning, not the monuments, but the decision, again and again, to look at a people you have just defeated and say, "You may keep what you are. You belong here too." That idea outlasted the walls of Persepolis, it outlasted the dynasty, it outlasted the very name of Persia itself. And in a world still struggling with the same ancient question of how different peoples can share the same earth, it may not be finished yet. This video is brought to you by the Paladin Learn History app.